In our work in disaster response, one of the things that we've determined is that there are 4 major phases in the aftermath of a human-caused disaster. What makes a human-caused disaster different than a natural-caused disaster is, with a natural-caused disaster, there's often a time to prepare. There's a news bulletin or a siren that goes off telling you that a tornado is nearby. The weather forecast is showing swirling clouds coming towards where you live. In a human-caused disaster, there's none of that. Something happens, it's immediate, it's unexpected, unanticipated, and the impact of it is profound. The first phase of responding is responding to that impact. And what happens typically is that all the energy sort of ramps up. Everybody wants to do something. Everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to send well wishes, whether it's cookies or bears or money or cards. And what's really frustrating and for us as disaster responders and as ministers, there really isn't a lot to do in the aftermath of a human-caused disaster. You've got to pay attention to the worshiping community, you got to pay attention to the congregation, but there's no house to rebuild. There's no basement to muck out. There's none of those sort of tangible things that are really therapeutic and helpful. So instead, people kind of have all this energy and then it just sort of starts to dissipate. And that's the second phase of human-caused disaster response. We call it disillusionment. It's where 3, 4, 5, 6 months in, you realize that you're still sad, you're still crying, you still are avoiding that place that you were at when you heard about what happened. In my situation, there was a coffee shop that I had gone to every morning on my way to church. It was across from City Hall where the shooting occurred. It was about 8 months in and I realized I hadn't been there in that whole time. It was too close. I didn't think about not going. But I just sort of avoided it. And it's not just our favorite coffee shops we avoid. In disillusionment, it's harder to pray. It's harder to be attentive to those who have what appear to be, to you, petty concerns. For them, they're real concerns. They're normal concerns. They're the concerns that you as a minister deal with day in and day out. In a sense, they're the currency of your ministry. But when you've been responding to a disaster, a human-caused disaster, and all the energy you've given is going out of you, when those people come to you, you don't have anything to give them. You don't really have anything to give to yourself. You don't have anything to give to your significant other, to your family. There's really a sense of diminishment during the disillusionment phase, and you become tired. You may start to begin to suffer from compassion fatigue. You find that you're overeating or drinking too much, or you're not doing the things that used to give you fun and joy. You're avoiding your friends. All kinds of things are going on in the season of disillusionment. And then there comes a time, and for me it was a dark time. It was a time when I had to work through whether or not I was going to continue to be a minister, or whether it was time to leave the ministry altogether. But there comes a time where you have to decide to be healthy. You have to decide intentionally, I am not going to let this destroy me. You decide that you are tired, sick and tired of being empty. And you begin to make a turn, and what we call it is the turn towards reforming. That what was will never come back. It's been destroyed. But what could be good. It may not be better, but it'll be good or good enough. And so the third phase is reforming, and you begin to put the pieces back together. It's that mosaic work again. You find some goodness and you hang on to that. You learn how to discard those things that are hurtful or shameful. Something happened and you just kind of let it go. And you begin to build back some sense of, I'm okay, we're okay, and life is going to be fine. The last stage, which takes a long time to get to, we call wisdom. And wisdom is that stage where you can look back and realize that what has happened is now firmly in the past. For me, that sense of wisdom came when I had this realization well up within me that this chapter of my life is now over. Again, for me, it was a vocational crisis time, because if this chapter is over, does that mean I need to leave the church I serve where this event happened? I sat with that question for about a year and came to the realization that I could be happy and joyful and full of life again in this place. That it wasn't just me that had turned the chapter, all of us, in a sense, had turned the chapter. And we were trying to begin and think about what do we do in this sense of newness and this sense of life coming back. Color in life was starting to come back again. The smiles were there, the jokes were there, the happiness was there. And so the last phase is wisdom. And for me, as someone who went in thinking that God protects and that goodness prevails always, and sort of had some very naive theological roadmaps, to me, wisdom is that roadmap that says life is now, goodness is now, and tomorrow really is in God's hands. And so the invitation for me is to be attentive to the now, to be attentive to what I can give to help others, but not so much that I'll be empty. I'm much more vigilant and much more discerning about sharing my gifts and doing work and having fun. And to be honest, it's a much saner life than I've ever lived before.